Why did you have to start the show just that way? Welcome to what is the second live stream that we've actually done where we are able to take your calls right across the country, and it doesn't matter where you are right across the globe. You can always do it, 1300 857 466, and of course it's the boss's show. I love these bobbleheads you've got. These have just been launched, by the way, and we thought we'd bring them to you. Have a look at that. It's just perfect. You know she's got better eyebrows than you.
I wouldn't be surprised. What is a lot better than me? I don't know who you took this from. If you think that looks like me, let me hear what I'm going to hear what you think. I don't think it looks anything like me.
Can I just tell you how these started a couple of weeks ago versus what they are today is completely different. And we even got your skin tones right. How good's that? Anyway, we've got a fairly big show to cover in the next 2 hours. And the beauty about this is that you actually get involved. So if you want to have a chat to Pauline about any of the issues that we're discussing tonight, the number's 1300 857 466. You've had a big couple of days. Last week was huge.
Got a big week. Okay, we hit the road again, which we do quite often, and getting around through Queensland. It was a big trip. We actually flew up to Rockhampton, then hired a car from there. Then we actually went up to Charterhouse. We went to Hughenden, through Hughenden, Julia Creek, Cloncurry, Burketown, Doomadgee, and up to Adele Gorge. So that's a stone's throw away from the Northern Territory.
I love this surprise that you did on Gregory Downs Hotel.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And the little Shetland pony in the front yard, apparently it's a regular out there. And they've also got a big white one too that sometimes goes through the bar, which is, I guess, for anyone a bit of a surprise. And these guys, where were they from? Where were these guys from? They were from Ireland?
Yeah.
Stinking hot day. It would have been, 42 degrees at least?
Yes.
And so they got the full experience of what North Queensland is about, and not just North Queensland, but the Gulf. And it was stinking hot at that time. We got a few showers. It was good.
We did. They got some good rain up there.
This was Lawn Hill, and you pulled us out of bed at 5:30 to go on a 6 o'clock trek. Stinking hot conditions, I reckon. What did we finish by 9:30? And we covered over 7 kilometres. This is just pristine.
Yeah. If you have the opportunity to go up to Adele Gorge, fantastic spot. And it is amazing. We actually went swimming, and that's the first time I have gone swimming in at any time. Any of the trips, I've never gone swimming.
Yeah.
So I did. I jumped in. It was fantastic.
And what surprised me most was the fact that you were happy to swim with freshwater crocodiles up there.
Yeah. Surprising.
Yeah. And I got to admit, I was a bit worried at times because I thought to myself, you know how you're always told don't go near the water when you're up inside the Gulf country, or you have to pick your spots. But Adele's Grove, and that's Lawn Hill where you are there. And look, here's the classic shot. Woman's Day, eat your heart out. I reckon if someone had a stills camera and got some of you in your bikini, and it was a one piece, look at you nearly drowning here. I couldn't believe you under that waterfall. I reckon you almost drowned.
It was so powerful. It was knocking me off my feet. I couldn't stand on the rock underneath, and it was so powerful. But it was a wonderful experience. So I'm so pleased that we actually got there, and going through the other places in Queensland, and especially going up to around Julia Creek. We were there a year ago after the floods, and seeing the devastation what happened. It was great to get up there, speak to the locals, and they were very appreciative of what the Army did, and also the donations that came in from the Australian people. It really gave them
yeah, they were very appreciative.
They were very appreciative. They really were.
And the town's in a good place, really is. And to our surprise as well, I know that Scott Morrison's made a number of commitments and promises to the bushfire victims. That was one of the reasons why you wanted to get up there, and that was to actually hear what people had to say on the ground, because there were a lot of commitments made to Julia Creek and Cloncurry and those flooded areas of Townsville as well, and the feedback was positive, wasn't it?
It was positive, and in light of the bushfires, wanted to ensure that, the government did what they promised they would do up Julia Creek, so hopefully they'll follow through and do the same for those in the bushfires, but also the drought. People are still feeling they're not being looked after, the drought, and that's what we're hearing. I
want to share something with people because I was quite surprised at something that we saw when we were on the road. We didn't see this personally ourselves, but it was given to us by somebody that was up in one of those dry communities. This is actually footage from Doomadgee. This is water. And we talk about water in our cities and how we're low in Stanthorpe. In fact, Stanthorpe's run dry. This is Doomadgee water, and it quite literally comes out like Coke. Now, that's
Terrible.
not all the time, but that is a clear example of problems that we've got in some of these regional communities. And that's, could you imagine bathing in that, let alone
Well, that's up to
drinking
Doomadgee.
it?
They've got less than, 9%, so they haven't got much water at all, so they haven't had the rains they normally have. But the same is happening at Stanthorpe, and they're very low in their water as well. You're getting down to 7-8%,
Yep.
and they're limited to 80 litres a day per person. So it's they're destitute there. What annoys me about, and I will raise this, out at Stanthorpe, they've allowed a Chinese-owned resort, Cheraba, to extract water, 96 megalitres a year of water. Each megalitre is 1,000 litres. So that can be extracted from underground, and then they send it to the Gold Coast to be bottled. The state government have allowed that to happen. Now, my understanding is the state government is paying $800,000 a month to actually import water into the town to keep them afloat. Yet they've allowed this company to extract the water to sell it on the Gold Coast for commercial purposes. So why don't they put the money into putting down a bore so that people can actually have water security in the town of Stanthorpe? And the council have gone along with this as well. They said, well, it's not up to them. I'm sorry, you are partly responsible for this, because as a council, you should have said no to the state government. You should have made your voice heard. And hear them saying, oh, well, they're not the only ones that take water. So you've got farmers around there. They've had to sell off all their cattle. They can't water their own cattle. So you've got other industries that are on their knees, and they've allowed it purely so they can bottle the water and sell it.
Someone's making big bucks out of this, and the problem is that it's not the communities that really deserve the water that are getting it. We hear it from Longreach. We hear it from other communities. They are desperate for new bores to go down. State and federal governments could easily pay for these, but they don't. Instead, they issue what are effectively licences for these overseas companies to make money out of bottled water.
True. But as I've said, for the last 23 years, under Agenda 21, now it's Agenda 2030, is about privatisation of water. And I'll go back over it and over it again. John Howard started this with separation of water from land in 2004. It was the Water Act of 2007. It's about privatising water under Agenda 21. That was brought out in 1992, and that's what it's all about, is don't put in the infrastructure, you make it a scarce commodity, people would pay more for it, then it's privatisation, as they have done in England, and they've done it in the States. And we spoke to the Mayor, and I said, do the people pay for their water? Is the meters on it? He said, no, they're being told to put meters on it now. He said, that will come. They will be paying for their water that they pull out of the bores. And I was speaking to another person, and they said, do you know that we're going to get charged for our water in our dams? And I said, it's all from Agenda 21.
Yeah.
And
more and more people are cottoning onto this, and you may also hear it referred to as Agenda 30 as well. 1300 857 466 is our number. I know there over New Year's Eve you did the live stream for 6 hours. You took over 700 phone calls in the office here. So we don't know how many people are going to call tonight. But I tell you what, if you do call, we're giving you these sticking up for farmers little freebies tonight. We'll send them out to you. So even if you don't get on with us tonight, you will get one of these posted out to you. It's to hold your credit card on the back of your phone, saves taking the wallet as well. So 1300 857 466. Maleny Dairies. We were out in the Gulf country when this occurred, and I just want to bring to people's attention a decision that was made. Now, I'll bring this up just here. Maleny Dairies put in a bid for a contract within the Queensland government. Do you want to explain what happened?
well, I did. They were asked to put a bid in for it. Now it's to supply hospitals, the Royal Brisbane Hospital, Gympie Hospital, the Charles Hospital, for milk, anywhere between 11 to 15,000 litres of milk per week. And there's also a product of yoghurt, but they could supply the milk. they put their bid in, and guess what? It went to Lactalis and Lion Dairy, which was open processors they are, was owned by the Japanese company. It's just been bought out by that Chinese company that bought Bellamy's.
Yep.
Milk powder.
These were the same company that had the melamine scare some years ago, which killed a number of infants in China.
I think about 5 or 6, and then you had 50,000 people, 50,000 kids that are actually made sick because of it.
Yeah.
Affected by it. That's the company that's actually taken over Lions. And the other one is Lactalis. That's a French company. So these companies, you've got Lactalis, over a 4-year period, they had a turnover of $6.4 billion.
That's phenomenal.
Paid $43 million in tax.
Mm-hmm.
You've had Lions, over a 3-year period, under Japanese ownership, they had $12.5 billion turnover, paid $186 million. So these, I don't think it sounds a lot of money that they're paying in taxes.
No,
compared to the turnover.
It's not.
Yet here we have Maleny Dairies, totally Australian owned, Queensland company, employs only Australians.
Yep.
They actually pay the taxes here. The money stays in the country.
And they pay farmers a fair price for milk.
Yes, they are the ones that do. And they are actually being denied this contract. And there's nothing about Lactalis. They are actually trying to force a dairy farming family prior to Christmas. It was brought to my attention. They got in touch with my office to sign up on the agreements prior to the code of conduct coming out, because they wanted to pay them below production cost for their milk. And this is a company that the state government has given this contract to. I think it's disgraceful that they have done it.
It is. And actually, we've got some callers. Joe's actually calling. He wants to talk about Maleny Dairies. Hi, Joe.
Hi, how are you?
Hello, Joe.
Hi, Pauline. It's Joe Natoli here. How are you?
Oh, Joe. Yeah, hi. This is the former mayor of the Sunshine Coast. How you been, mate?
Yeah, good. Yeah, I was pretty outraged when I heard about exactly what happened with Ross and Sally's business there. I mean, it's just typical. Governments make these decisions all the time and get away with these bad decisions. And it was interesting. I was reading one of reading the Facebook posts and comments that Tracy Bell Hanson had, and people were saying, "Oh, how many petitions do we need to write?" And I said, "Well, writing petitions is a bit of a waste of time. I think it's time we need a revolution. We need to march on Parliament like the French farmers do, and pour some of the produce on their steps, because, you know, I think we need to demonstrate, we need to get off our backside and show governments that enough's enough." And I've said I'm prepared to march in Parliament, and quite a few other people have come back and said, "Yeah, I'll join you." So what I'm proposing is that let's do that. Let's set up a march. Let's march onto Parliament, onto the steps of Parliament, pour a 1 litre bottle of Maleny Dairy milk on the stairs, just as a gesture and sign that we've had enough.
That's what I'm hearing. People are frustrated with it, and they say, well, what can we do about it? They can't do anything about it. People power, and I have said that all along, will change. And if you keep voting for the same political parties, you'll keep getting the same. And if people stand up, and there has been protest, they'll realise we're going into an election year. If you're going to do anything, this is the year to do it, and send a clear message to them. And and you have to. You know, they pick off people one by one. So it's either the farmers, the dairy farmers, or it's the nurses, or it's other industries or trades, police. You know, they don't get the backup that they need either. And it's got to say, hey, people out there, start standing up and supporting your mates. That's where we are. We're all mates trying to survive in this world. And these politicians and the legislation they pass, they feel they can do whatever they want to do. And in Queensland, because we don't have an upper house, the total control by the Labor Party, they can push through whatever they want to, and it's not questioned.
Joe, I'm guessing you're a Maleny Dairies buyer, mate.
Yeah, I am. In my last business, that's the only milk that I had. We made our coffee with the gold top milk. We bought, then used to be called Collins James gelato, which was made 100% from Maleny dairy milk.
Oh, yeah.
And we only sold Maleny dairy milk in the shop, so we didn't handle any other company's milk.
Well, Joe, your idea of having the protest, see if you can round up some people. I'll get behind you and I'll support it. So if you want to get some people to actually go down and protest and tell the Anastasia Palaszczuk government it's not good enough, and to support your local dairying industry, a Queensland company.
Yeah, I propose that we should do it on Monday, the 17th of February, and that's 1 month from the date that we'd sort of heard about what happened to Maleny Dairies. So if you've got any people that you know that want to join, I'm happy to go out and gather as many people as I can. But I think if everyone does the same thing, we can get huge numbers. I remember when Bob Abbott was the mayor of Noosa, and Noosa was forced into amalgamation against their will. 10,000 people marched on the steps of Parliament. Now, the Labor government didn't listen to them, but the opposition did. So I think ultimately, that people power is needed because, too often we have decisions in this country where we just sit back and we think, that was a terrible decision, but who's going to be doing something about it? And often we just sit back and we don't do anything about it. And I think the time has come that this country realises that we've got to start a revolution. We've got to start to get out there and voice our
Well, we're here
opposition.
tonight talking about it, Joe, and that's a start. And the whole fact is that by having One Nation, we are putting up candidates to stand for Parliament to become your representatives across the state in this Queensland state election. That is a start. If we can take back their total power and control on the floor of Parliament and bring back common sense and legislation that represents the people of Queensland, it's going to be a big start. And we will turn back, and actually we've been talking about the policy for all the legislation that's put forward. For one piece of legislation they're putting forward, we will actually repeal 5 pieces of legislation. I think we are snowed under with too much legislation. We have become such a nanny state, telling people how to live their lives, and I think we need to start repealing a lot of this legislation. So anyway, that's what we want to do as One Nation. Yep. Okay.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe. Good to talk.
Thanks, guys.
Good to know you're still hanging around on the Sunshine Coast, mate. Say good day to Rosanna.
Yeah, we'll do. Thank you.
All right, mate.
Cheers.
All right. 1300 857 466 might be something about the milk industry you want to talk about, but this has really upset a lot of people to think a Chinese company. We've got hospitals from Gympie all the way down to Brisbane. We're talking about Queensland here at this moment if you're watching from across the country, but it starts here and it ends up being the same case right across the other states as well. So,
but I just got a letter that sent to me from the New South Wales Dairy Farmers Association, and that was on the 15th of January. Remember the code of conduct that came in on the 1st of January, that Bridget McKenzie went kicking and screaming that she didn't want to introduce it, and the whole fact is I don't think it goes far enough, and I believe the dairy bill that I wanted to introduce on the floor of Parliament failed by 1 vote, and that was basically stopped by the National Party. I'm sorry, they are supposed to be for the man on land. They didn't support this whatsoever. Now that would have given a fair price, milkgate price, above production costs, so they could actually survive. And now the dairy farmers in New South Wales have written to me basically saying the same thing. They want $1.50 a litre. They're saying exactly what I have been saying.
Yep.
So if Mackenzie thinks she's got it right, I think she hasn't, and either has Senator McDonald. And she's out there spruiking about it as well, and I don't think she really understands what she's on about either. She, at the hearing, she was saying, oh, well, I think it should be passed down from the retailer to the processor back to the dairy farmer. I'm sorry, you got it back to front. You pay the dairy farmer a reasonable price for his product. It's the same as whether they're selling apples or corn or whatever, or strawberries. You pay them, then it's passed on to the next in line, and then the consumer pays the final price for it. You don't do the dairying industry back to front.
1300 857 466. That's the easiest number to get a hold of us. It's a local call. Doesn't matter where you are across the country. Now, something just flashed up on the screen, which we were saving, but we'll get into it. You have had a big week lambasting the bid for the Brisbane Olympics, which is for 2032. Now, you know, we're not the only country to go for this, but you've come out very strong. You've put 50 billboards up across Queensland. And obviously, you made a few headlines last Friday, and it's continued again this week as well.
Well, we've been out there speaking to people about the Olympics, and what have we heard? Everyone, bar one email that was brought to my attention today that came through the office and saying that big supporter of mine, but I've got it wrong with the Olympics because they believe that infrastructure is going to help outside of Ipswich and these other towns. Well, I beg to differ, and these Summer Olympics, James, they did a survey at the Oxford University, and all Summer Olympics, I think it's for the last 60 years, there's been a blowout of 176%.
That's an average. That's 100. You couldn't run a country like that.
Well, of course you can't run a country like that. And the average cost of holding these Olympics in our dollars is $12.5 billion.
Yeah.
$12.5 billion. You know, to build the Bradfield scheme is $15 to $20 billion. We can actually plan 12 years ahead and bid for a sports, but we can't plan ahead even a few years to build infrastructure for water, to give us water security for the next 100 or so years.
I think that's one of the strongest points that you've actually made. If you have a look, Scott Morrison's put $10 million towards this bid. Anastasia Palaszczuk, she can't tell you how much she's put towards it, and she won't tell you how much they are going to put towards it. When you have a look at the Rio Olympics that were just recently held, Rio couldn't even pay their police officers and couldn't keep hospitals open, and yet here they were hosting Olympics. It just doesn't make sense. The only real area of Queensland that's going to get the benefit, if any, is Brisbane, the Gold Coast and Sunshine Coast. And we saw as a classic example from what was the Commonwealth Games, there was an issue when it came to the businesses across the Gold Coast. There were warnings put out across the media saying stay away from the Gold Coast if you don't have to be there. So it was like a ghost town in some parts.
Can you imagine the highways going down to the Gold Coast for any sporting events? It's Parkway now as it is, and especially going up to the Sunshine Coast as well.
Yep.
So they're talking about, we're going to put in fast trains that goes to Toowoomba, the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast. Yes? Really? Where's the money coming from? I've seen these wish list of infrastructure projects, but I don't see anything happening. So where are they going to get the money from?
I got Wade who's giving us a call right now. Wade, g'day.
Hello, how's it going?
Hi, Wade. Good.
Hey, Pauline, how you doing? And I want to say thank you for my birthday card that you sent me last month. Anyhow,
do you know, Wade? I see her sitting in that Parliament, and she'll often take them either down to the chamber with her if she's got to listen to the Greens speak, and she'll sit there and she'll write birthday cards or Christmas cards to people, and then other times
or Anzac Day cards or
yes.
Remembrance Day cards or personal birthday cards.
I got a personally signed birthday card from Pauline, and it just totally made my year. Totally made it. Anyhow, with the Olympics, oh my friggin' God. Okay, I'm originally Canadian.
Yeah.
And what I have found is we had the Vancouver Olympics, the Montreal Olympics, and basically all that money was spent to bring in major dollars. Then they spent so much money on making towns in Vancouver, Montreal, and what are they now? Just rotten away. And I totally agree with you 100% that we don't need to spend the money there. We need to spend the money on drought. We need to spend money on the farmers.
Water.
Nobody really wants.
Have a look at this water. This is what communities are putting up with. At Doomadgee, they're putting up with brown. In fact, it's black water. And they want to spend $12.5 billion at least when it comes to the Olympics.
It's totally insane. And the way they've got dams working, which the management on dams is just mental. Palaszczuk, whatever her name is basically running us into the ground. The floods back in, 2012,
The
Yes,
Brisbane
we did.
ones.
11,
Dams were open,
was,
like, too
11,
soon.
12, yep. Yeah, we had those
So-
huge floods then, and we had floods North Queensland last year. Yeah, we could have harvested a lot of this water, and we haven't. So we're not using it to our benefit. So that's why I'm
No.
adamant about this Bradfield scheme. It's very similar to the Snowy Mountain scheme that they did, and to bring the water over the range and flood inland Queensland, hopefully let it flow down to the southern states. But what we're finding is the cost of water in the southern states, a lot of the graziers and people down there on the land in Victoria can't afford the cost of water anymore. They're actually migrating to Queensland and buying properties in North Queensland because of the cost of water. And if we don't do something about it, it'll be the same in Queensland. People will not be able to afford the water, and they're having problems with it now. But it was lovely to talk with you, Wade. Thank you very much for calling in.
I actually need to talk to you about more things, but I was
we've
only
got
allowed to talk to you about one.
Yeah, we've got a board full of callers trying to get through to us. So appreciate
Thanks,
your
Wade.
call. Thanks.
1300 857 466. Very easy number. Pick the phone up. You can give us a call. Just on another thing on the Olympics, and I don't think people have really considered this. The Commonwealth Games were only held recently on the Gold Coast. Do you realise there's still 230 Commonwealth Games athletes and officials that skipped the games and decided they'd claim asylum?
Yeah, 230, 240 actually.
A lot of them. Look,
they don't know where they are.
Some
They're
they
distributed
don't.
in our society. I think there's about 4 they've processed, and it cost of $2 million?
$2 million
to actually process those.
And the rest have been deemed not to be asylum seekers, but because of the appeals process, which can take often years, there's still 230 of them sitting here in the country. And at the end of the day, it's you and I, they're paying for it one way or another. Even if you don't work, you're paying for it because you are not getting the services that are, generally owed to you as an Australian citizen.
And you can't tell me that people can actually say, oh, look, I want to come to Australia to visit the Olympics, and some of those people might have it in mind to actually apply for a refugee status.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. And I hope that if we do happen to have the Olympics here, we don't get Peter Beattie running it. What an absolutely hopeless job he did at the first time around for the Commonwealth Games. And the complaints that I've heard from people, even myself, I was so bored with watching that opening and closing ceremony of the Commonwealth Games. I think it was bloody awful.
Well, I don't think they were even able to sell tickets.
It was
complete
terrible.
ticket sales. So
Anyway.
1300 857 466. You may agree or disagree. If you don't want to call, you can always leave a message on the Facebook page itself. But if you do call, we are giving you these sticking up for farmers' little credit card holders, which you attach to the back of your phone. You can have that for nothing. Also, too, I just want to point out these bobbleheads are now on sale through the One Nation website, onenation.org.au. They are $30 and plus postage and handling. But because Australia Day is coming up this weekend, we'll throw in a Australia Day flag. Well, the Australian flag, not just Australia Day flag, but Australian flag in general. So if you want to do that, book it online through the website or give us a call, 1300 857 466. We want to go through a number of other things. I would really like, I know you had a meeting today, it was a teleconference with the committee members when it comes to family law. Can you give us an update with this?
Well, I have, and I'm glad to see it progressing forward. We're having the first hearing in Canberra on the 14th of February. The people who will be at that hearing is the Attorney General's Department and also the Law Society. After that, it's going to move to, in the 10th of March, where we're actually starting there. We're going to go from Townsville to Rockhampton, to Brisbane, to Sydney, then the following week. We're going to be visiting Darwin, Alice Springs, and then Adelaide, then going down to Launceston, and Launceston, then Hobart, and then across to Bendigo, and then back to Melbourne. And that will be it'll finish in Melbourne just the day before Good Friday. Now, this is going to be advertised tomorrow by the committee, and it'll be on the government website. So look for those dates and times in those cities. At this stage, we haven't planned anything for Western Australia, but that will definitely be happening. We will be going to Western Australia and to the rural and regional areas of Western Australia. So if you're interested in it, and all those people who have put in your submissions, thank you very much. It is very informative. A lot of work. I think it's one of the biggest, or if not the biggest, inquiry with the number of submissions that have been put in with family law. So it's very important that we get it right, and I want it to be a voice for the people.
Some of these stories I know some of the committee members have said they're so emotionally draining because there is so much heartache going on out there.
Look, it's dreadful. And the things that I actually put in the terms of reference, and when I worked with the government about this terms of reference, the things that I put across was about the court system, about the judges, about the cost of to people to go through the process. You've got also about domestic violence and also about the child support. They are the main things coming out of this in these submissions that people are actually talking about. And what I want to see is about the rights of the child. The child has the right to spend time with both parents.
You've always said it. I know you've got your own family members who've been through this, and it's meant so much for them. I've seen your own son, especially with his young bloke, and it's while it's made a big difference for him to see him partially, I know he'd prefer a whole lot more, wouldn't he?
Oh, of course he would, and he should. But it's the system that's let him down and let the child down. So hopefully, and I know a lot of judges and solicitors and the Law Society themselves know that it's broken, it's failed, and hopefully we will be able to make a difference with it in our recommendations. But you can make your recommendations. At the end of the day, it's the government that has to move on it. I'm
going to take a call right now from Brian. Brian, g'day.
G'day, mate. How are you?
Good. Pauline's listening.
Hi, Brian. Hello.
G'day, Pauline. Honoured to speak with you.
Thank you.
I am one of many alienated dads through a ex-partner obviously manipulating the system to suit herself with outrageous claims of just fiction. What I would like to see is the overhaul of the entire system. Every trade that we know of is they do the job and then they give you a bill. Not so much with solicitors. It is, give me 1,500, 2,000, 3,000 to appear for the day, or we will not do it. I don't really think
it's extremely hard.
Cool.
Isn't it amazing? I spoke to a judge and they were saying we can actually give legal aid to someone who's actually committed murder, but we can't give legal aid to someone who's actually trying to fight to see their kids. And that's the system that we're in. And I want to see a fairer system for everyone around. I think the costs to those people seeking justice is ridiculous. What they charge per hour is over the top. It's ridiculous. That needs to be looked at as well.
Got to keep running. 1300 857 466 the family law. There are updates, and we can obviously give you those by tomorrow. There are all states across the country bar WA have been determined and will be announced on the government website tomorrow. We're off to the next caller, Craig. G'day, Craig. Child support.
Yeah, g'day. First of all, I just want to say thank you very much for taking the call, and thank you very much for the update on the family law review as well. That was really good to hear.
Oh, good. Thanks, Craig. Yes.
No worries, Pauline. Look, it's probably a conversation you've had with many people, both sides of the family, mums and dads, and there's no perfect solution or scenario, but certainly when you look through the child support calculation system, it is completely biased to someone who has a child on the lesser period of the time. And a clear example is if a father or a mother has a child for less than 35% or at 35%, they're actually paying for 75% of that care. So example is they should be only paying 25%, but they're paying 35%. the self-support allowance is completely inappropriate, I guess, at this current day and age, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. And I'm sure, Pauline, you've talked to many constituents over the last couple of years and have talked about their concerns with the calculations. It does drive people into heartbreak and hurt, and I guess I'm really looking forward to your support when you do the family law review to really push home this point for some fairness.
Craig, I've already started discussions with the Minister, with whose portfolio you're talking about child support. I think they do want to address it and are quite interested in what my suggestions are. Having spoken to people, and all I want is what's fair. And I think, and as what I put forward is, I think it should be based on a 38-hour week. Anything over that, if you want to work harder, have a second job, or if you want to make the money, that's yours. It shouldn't go into child support. And let's do it on that. And I think it should be after taxes taken out, not before. So on your taxable income. So these are things that I'm discussing. I want a fairer system, and like you said, what you pay in child support, so it depends on how many nights you have the child, and I know if you have them 56, and you pay more, you pay more if you have them less than 57 days of the year, or, the whole system is not balanced and fair, and I think a lot of people are actually denying their partner from having the children purely so they can get more child support. So, and yet there's other ones out there that I think that parents who do have the children get no help or assistance from the other partner, the other parent, and I think that's wrong in itself. Everyone should contribute to that child, the child's upbringing, a roof over their head, food on their table, and their education. It's both parents' responsibility, not just one.
I tell you what, we could take phone calls on family law matters all night, and I can see just by the phone list there are dozens, if not.
So let's try and get through as many as we possibly can. 1300
857 466. I know that Jacob is out west. I think we're trying to get him back on the line. We must have lost him there, but Jacob.
Hello.
G'day.
Oh, hello.
Hi, Jacob. G'day, we got you back.
Oh, hey, Pauline. It's great to speak to you.
Thank you. What would you like to talk about?
What I wanted to talk about tonight was sort of relates to this ludicrous spend of money on things. In Queensland, as you're probably well aware, the state of the roads are just appalling in parts of Western Queensland.
Yep.
What I'm sort of drawing reference to is, at the moment, we've got the New South Wales and South Australian governments. They're sealing all their roads to the corner country, and I've made inquiries to the Queensland Minister about this, and they're not interested in helping graziers or farmers out near Nakundra or Thargomindah whatsoever in assisting them getting stock to cattle yards and things.
Of course they're not, because there's no votes out there for them. This is what it's all about.
Yeah.
This is National Party territory or One Nation territory, and they're not interested because we just look after the Labor Party seats. They haven't put the money into it. We've travelled the state quite extensively. I understand fully what you're talking about, the roads. And the state of the roads, I think that some of these roads, the way they're built, is pathetic. I don't think the foundation's laid properly to last for a lengthy period of time, and the number of potholes and patches have been done on it because they've been done on the cheap.
You're absolutely right, Pauline, and what strikes me is you've got the New South Wales government who are, in my opinion, bloody hopeless. They've managed to seal from Broken Hill, and they're going to finish sealing to Tibooburra and beyond to the border next year, and the Queensland government won't even come to the party sealing from Nakundra to the border. Now that leaves so many farmers and graziers out there on the limb because they're going to go to New South Wales or South Australia to sell their cattle. They're not going to sell cattle in Queensland.
You know the answer, Jacob? People out there listening, in Queensland, the elections this year, don't vote Labor or the Greens. Okay?
No, and this is what I can't understand. They've gone for the Olympics. We learnt that lesson in New South Wales. It was a complete disaster. It sent the state broke. I don't know why Queensland want to pursue it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, and they said it was a great success in Sydney. Well, I'm sorry, I can see that $12.5 billion or plus money put elsewhere to benefit the whole state, not just southeast Queensland. And I remember I spoke to businesses on the Gold Coast. They said, we never got the clientele through the door that we wanted to.
No.
The locals were so upset from it,
Yeah, they were.
and we don't need... I'm sorry, if you want the Olympics, great. Do we really want a 2-week sugar hit, or do we want to secure water security for the state for the next 100 years? I know what I want.
I think what's most frustrating is they say
with you,
that it's...
Pauline, and you got my vote.
Thanks, Jacob.
Yeah, Jacob,
Cheers.
I think what's frustrating people, though, is the simple fact that, they use this excuse that, we've got to build these roadways to cope with the Olympics. Well, no, you need to build them for the sake of the people that are already here first. You take an oath. I've watched you take your oath. Your oath is to the people of this country and not to those who just want to visit.
I'm glad you raised that. I watched an interview with Josh Frydenberg yesterday with Chris Kenny, and he said, we have made a commitment to the Paris Agreement. That's their first and foremost
I heard that too.
Commitment was about the Paris Agreement. He didn't say we've made a commitment for the Australian people. It's about the Paris Agreement, everyone else around the world, not to the people of Australia. Regardless of the fact they know that rising electricity prices, water prices, even the farmers, the cost of irrigation is actually driving them off the land. And their commitment is to Paris Agreement for what, emissions of 1.3%, and ours is what, 0.04% of that or something. How ridiculous.
Not going to make a single dent. I was at the Emu Park Markets on Sunday, and I was there with our state candidate, Wade Rothery. We were right beside the Greens. I couldn't believe the markets put us right beside the Greens. Well, the feedback that the Greens got at those markets was outright what they deserved. And I must admit, some people were damn abusive. But, a lot of people blame these fires that have occurred on the Greens. But the truth of the matter is the Greens haven't been in power across this country.
No,
Never
that's
once
right.
have they held government. So the fires are the responsibility of legislation.
When they've had the balance of power in the state or federally, they've actually then forced them to take up some of the policies. And there's some of these greenies that are on the councils, they've actually forced their hand to actually implement some of their policies. So I'm sorry, they have to.
Well, sure, but I'm saying Labor and Liberal have to take some of the responsibility as well, because they have never stood up to the Greens on these particular matters. And council elections are happening in Queensland. I hope like hell that genuine good people stand up, put their hand up to actually run for those council elections. Not political junkies. Let's have pure, independent, proper, sound-minded people run for those.
But since the fires, didn't you tell me the Yeppoon, up at Yeppoon now they're starting the clearing?
Yep.
Which they never did before?
Well, they've got bigger fire breaks than I've ever seen before in Yeppoon as a result of these fires, and I think it's great.
I think it's going to impact the whole country, and I think people are going to say, we want to see these fire breaks, we want to see better management of our national parks and areas, and allowing people to get rid of the trees that are close to their homes, which is going to be a fire problem to them. We're going to have more fires again. We will have more floods and droughts. We'll continue in this country. It's the country that we have. We need to have the fires because it germinates the seed from our fauna. And
a lot of our flora is germinated,
flora,
especially
I should say.
native species. You will find that a lot of them are germinated through fire. And I think Captain Cook even made reference to the amount of fires that were burning when he sailed up and down the coastline. So
correct.
Let's take another call, 1300 857 477. Let's go to the orange line. This is Danny. G'day, Danny.
Hi, how you going? Hi, Pauline.
Hello, Danny. Good to talk with you. What would you like to talk about?
Just want to know, because I know a lot of Australians at the moment are listening to your broadcast. I actually seen it on Facebook, actually. I've subscribed to your thing on Facebook too. One point, how do us Australians get to vote a young lady like you with a lot of passion for this country to be Prime Minister so there can be change in this country?
You just paid me two beautiful compliments. Thank you. You said young, and the other one was, and the other one is about Prime Minister. Look, Danny, I can't see any future of my being Prime Minister of this country, or it won't happen, all right? So I can't become Prime Minister in the Senate. A senator cannot. You must run for a lower house seat, and your party must have the majority of seats. There's 151 seats in the lower house, and I must have the majority of those to actually get to be that position. So hopefully I'll see my time in the Parliament, and I'll be standing at the next election. That's for another 6-year term, and I'll go to the polls in 2022, so another 6 years after that, as long as my health and my passion for what I'm trying to do for the country is still there. And another thing is that I hope to see this party grow as it has done over the past 3.5 years, grow that one day, maybe with someone with the same passion and how they feel about this country and its people, to then become a Prime Minister further down the track. So
We've got a few already. We've got Stephen Andrew, of course, in Queensland. We've got Robin Scott, Colin Tinkle, they're WA.
In WA. They're state members of Parliament.
But the more good people we get as time goes on across the states, and of course in federal, will only lead to a stronger chance of us having more of a say in the way this country's run.
Definitely. And Danny, it's also about having, because we've got the balance of power, which we have in WA and in New South Wales and federally, that balance of power does rein in the government and what legislation they can put forward. So it's surprising how much we are achieving now already without even me being Prime Minister of this country. But, geez, I'll tell you what, this country would know what happened to it if I was Prime Minister. I keep saying that, don't I, James?
I know. 1300 857 466. Thanks, Danny. And let's go into James's phone line this time. G'day, mate.
Hello, mate. How are you?
Hi, James. G'day. Good.
Hi, Pauline. How are you? Nice to meet you.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. What would you like to talk about?
I just have a question in regards to the businesses where the fires have been affected, and for the ones that haven't been affected but are in that same particular area where people were evacuated, which is you can't get out of, but businesses that are heavily in debt due to restocking all this stuff that has gone off or anything like that. And everyone being evacuated has turned around, and the government actually turning around to help the businesses, which is beautiful, but to loan them the money to put them more into debt, even though it's interest-free, is just a hypothetical thing for me. If I turned around and said, well, I'm going to go into more debt if I borrowed money. So I'm stuck in a situation where why would the government put more debt onto businesses that are in this sort of situation where they've lost a lot of business that they expect, and why? I'm stuck in answers to why they would do that.
Well, it is. It sounds good to actually give them interest-free loans to these people, but you're right, it is another debt on top of it, so they've got to pay that money back, plus also if they are a debt to the bank because they bought the business themselves. This was the case what happened up in the floods in North Queensland, and I understand fully what you're saying, that they have to still pay the rents, the assistance that they get.
Kids
I'm not
to
fully
school.
across. Yeah, look, I'm not fully across.
Well, BAS is coming up on the 28th of January for these businesses, so it's just paying the BAS.
Well, it is. Look, because I've been on the road, I'm not fully across what the Prime Minister has said in these loans. They're putting about $76 million into it, and I think about $50,000 to the businesses. I could be wrong, but I need to actually get a better understanding of what they are offering the businesses before I make any firm comment about it. But I think these businesses do need a helping hand by all means. So let me...
Sorry.
So let me have a look at it in full, and so I can actually make an informed comment.
James, thanks for the call, mate.
No worries. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
1300 857 466. We can talk about a range of issues. Something I do want to raise is Queensland elections coming up. Later this year in October, there will be 93 seats across this state that will determine who runs Queensland. And
for 4 years, James.
It is
set
for 4.
term now.
Yep.
So no longer 3, it'll be a 4-year term.
I quite like the idea of 4 years.
So do I. And it's set.
I think one of the biggest problems we've seen in this state is the fact that a party will get elected. They spend a year trying to get their feet under the table. They've roughly got a year to actually do anything, and then the final year they spend electioneering. So you find there's only possibly 1 year of half-good governance, if you're lucky to get that in the first place.
And I think they should actually do it a 4-year set term for the federal parliament as well. But Because there's a half Senate election, so at the moment we have 3 years for the lower house and you have a set 6-year term for the upper house.
Yep.
If they send it to a 4-year for the lower house, they'll expect the upper house, the Senate, to have an 8-year term. I think that's too long. I think it's ridiculous. And I think that if we go to 4-year for the federal, the whole house, both sides, federal and the lower house and the Senate, should go out, and senators should only have a 4-year term.
Well, it'd make senators actually
Not
do some
8.
work. You're about the only one in Queensland, apart from Malcolm Roberts, that does work in this state. And you get around and you see it, every pocket of it. I know, because you dragged me along with you.
That's
1300 857 466. If you'd like to get involved in the Queensland election and run under One Nation, the website's the best place to go. Give us your details and we'll make sure we touch base with you at onenation.org.au. Look, I know it's October, but you need as long as you can to get some runs on the board in the community and make sure you're out there promoting yourself as well. So it's a good time to make contact. It's a new year. Maybe you've set yourself some new goals. You want to be a community leader, or maybe you're a councillor and want to step up an extra step going to state. So go to the website.
good. Who else are we going to talk to now?
Okay, let's go to the blue line. Let's go to Callum. G'day, Cal.
G'day, how you doing?
Hello, Callum.
I'm guessing
Good,
it's Callum.
Cal.
Sorry, Cal.
Is it Cal?
No, Kel, K-E-L.
Kel.
Oh, Cal.
All right.
Yeah, in Ayr in Queensland. You've been here, I've met you, Pauline.
Oh, yes.
And I don't think I've met James. Hey, listen, just this year's election, once again, great job in the Senate, I must say, and Malcolm Roberts, best fox terrier I've ever seen on the on everything. We've got to sort that Great Barrier Reef saga out too, Pauline. Not sure what you can do there.
Yes.
But how do we get the die in the ditches, Labor Party followers, and the LNP people to realise that they're backing dead horses, nearly as bad as Joe Bjelke-Peterson, flogging a dead horse? We in this country, and lucky for us that you're around, and Malcolm and any other the minor parties, Katter and that,
Yes.
are doing the hard yards in Parliament. I'm not sure what the rest of the crew are doing down there. I'm all for them doing a timesheet, actually, because, we got the member for Manila. He spends a bit of time up there somewhere. How do we have a plan for these minor parties like yourself to put across what can go on? How can we convince the die in the ditches people?
Well, look, it's changing. I think this time around with me, it's about the social media. So there's a lot of people that follow me on the social media, which is Pauline Hanson's Please Explain. So people are watching what's happening, and I've got more contact with people and they're understanding. We never had that years ago, and I used to do the public meetings. So there's more contact with people and a better understanding. People are starting to realise, because what's happened now is that people are hurting. And if you go to North Queensland around Ayr, you've got the cane growers. The National Party failed you in the Code of Conduct, which I fought for and got the Code of Conduct. Otherwise, a lot of the growers would have gone under. So, and the
great work, great. Yeah, great work. Yep, like I'm in Ayr, where you're talking about.
Yeah, I know. Big cane growing area.
The die in the ditches LNP people, on the night you got that across. I said, look at that. And this guy said, yeah, great, it's done. And I said, well, who got it across, mate? And he's a cane growers guy and an LNP guy. He said, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, we just got it across. I said, I called him a name.
Yeah.
And that's what we've got. We've got those silly people that just keep going year after year. And it's, and the industry, doesn't matter what it is, they're not spending money right now. People might say, oh, look, the price of sugar's up, the dollar's down and all that sort of stuff. But it is affecting because there's uncertainty.
Correct.
The Code of Conduct's going to come up again. It's decimating our rural communities, as is the dairy marketing. And good on you for giving Bridget McKenzie the toast, but what do they call them, post turtle of the Senate or wherever she is.
Yeah.
She really, she held her mark with you, and you've held your mark in the Senate there, saying, why didn't you tell us that was changed? And she had nothing to say. and good on you for doing that.
You got to look. It's about asking tough questions on a personal basis. I like Bridget. You know, I get on quite well with her, and I have. But I'm sorry, I move on from there. This is about what's right for the people of this country. Is she doing the right job? Is she representing the people? And she's not, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm calling her out for it.
Exactly.
And I call her out for it. And I'll call out anyone there for it, as they do with me. And if I'm not doing my job properly, then fine, pull me up. I don't mind constructive criticism. But to hold a position as minister, and you have sat on getting code of conduct for the dairy farmers, you are reluctant to give them a fair price, farm gate price for the milk, and what she's been doing. I'm sorry, I'm going to call her out for what she is and what she's doing or lack of doing, and I'm doing my job.
For sure. Yep. However, there's a lot of thing, and there was a guy that told me years ago, and we thought he was a bit crazy. Like, I'm talking 10 years ago. He said, the country's had it, Cal. You're just wasting your time. And that guy's moved to Asia because he reckons he still has property here. He still has the sheds and that sort of stuff. He said, we're fooling ourselves. And he was one of the guys that back when you first started, Pauline, saying, yep, they're all right. They're all this. And me and my young fella said, he's probably right, you know. And sure enough, these agreements, we talk about the Lima agreement, what else is there? There's other agreements. It appears to have a hindering on our dairy farmers and our sugar farmers, and it is wrecking our rural communities. You look at
industries, manufacturing, trade, the whole lot. I know it is, Kel, and that's what I'm trying to expose, to inform people what's going on. So it's about the people out there. Wake up. Look at the political parties. Look at what they're offering you. Are you better off now than what you were years ago? Is your standard of living, your way of life, is that any better these days than what it was 10 or 20 years ago? Our society. Look at that. Cal, we must move on. We've got a lot of people here wanting to talk to us.
Oh, yeah.
Nice to talk to you, Cal.
Our family circle works harder today than they had to 30 years ago.
Totally agree. All right. Thanks, Cal. Yep. Good to talk with you.
1300 857 466. It's funny what Kel says. Well, it's not funny at all, but businesses are struggling to stay afloat, particularly in regional areas, but also too in some of these more city and fringe areas of the city. I know on the Sunshine Coast, a particular business that's now spent over $12 million on council and feasibility studies to get their business off the ground, and they're still no closer to an approval. That land is sitting there vacant. Jobs are begging. They've come back to Australia from overseas to take on this challenge, and yet they just can't get it across the line.
We hear from people all the time. They said, what you've got, the hoops that you've got to jump through here to get a business up and running, your feasibility studies, the cost, whether it's council or state government, they said, we can't believe it. And this is deterring a lot of investment in Australia.
Kel's right. And people who have got money are saying to themselves, no, we'll go and set up shop overseas. It's easy to deal with it over there, and they'll send product back to you. And that's not what we want.
No, we're trying to push for something different.
All right, I've got Rod who wants to talk about Queensland elections. G'day, Rod.
Good evening, how are you?
Hello, Rod.
I just had an idea about with immigration and the lack of, for choice of a better word, some unskilled people coming into Australia. I had an idea of, whether you call it like an immigration education centre, set up in a very, very rural area. Immigrants coming in have to spend a set time there, whether it be 3 years, 4 years, learning the language, understanding our culture, our beliefs. They could do, whether it be a trade there or courses. And you could also use some of that labour there to start the rural pipeline throughout Australia. The best way I thought maybe to finance it would be maybe for the government to step up and start with a bank. Government sold all the banks. There's no telecommunications owned by the government. Mining. If you drive into any major city, the biggest buildings in there are insurance companies, telecommunications, and the government's got rid of them, all of them. I just think the money that would generate would help run that, and you would be getting a better value for money from those people coming in.
Can I say that they do have tests on people who apply to come to Australia for immigration? They must have a certain level of English, or if they come into the country, say you have parents, they don't necessarily have to have that level of English. So when they come here, the government does provide English lessons for people to learn that English, so that it's provided for them. I think the taxpayer out there who are struggling to get their own kids a decent education, if they thought that we are bringing out migrants into the country and we're paying for them to learn English and give them all these benefits, I don't think the Australian taxpayer would be quite happy about that. If people apply to come to this country, you've got to bring the fact is that you've got to, and there is a period of time that they must be here before they actually can apply for citizenship. So they have to pass a test then that they can actually answer the questions, talk about Australian culture, and they can actually speak the language. And another thing too, if you're thinking about setting it up in rural and regional Queensland or Australia, for that matter, we've actually, I've seen the closure of a lot of agricultural colleges that we can't even provide for our own Australians that want to go to these colleges to study how to stay on the land. And it's a shame. So I'm not really 100% behind you on your suggestion about taxpayers' dollars going into it. And at the moment, we've got 2.2 million workers in Australia on visas, so who've come into the country and who are workers. So, you know, those people are actually taking jobs from Australians, and I believe they are, but also there's another problem. A lot of Australians out there, and I'm hearing it from businesses, especially in rural and regional areas, don't want to work. They won't go out and try and get jobs. And a lot of these people on farms now, they overlook the Australians to get them to work. Yep. They want the foreigners working. That's why they bring a lot in from Asia, because they work the hours, they don't complain. It's a lot of money to them. They save their money while they're here, and then they go back home. And this is what the farmers are saying. We can't get Aussies. Years ago when I was a kid, about 40 years ago, a lot of the grey nomads travelled the country, and they actually were doing the fruit picking and they were working on the farms. That's not happening anymore. We've changed so much.
Yeah, Rod, thanks for the call, mate.
No worries, thank you.
1300 857 466. You know, on the tour that we did last week into the Gulf and Western Queensland, one of the things that really struck me was the lack of communication. Not just mobile telephone coverage, but I'm talking about internet access as well. And when you go into communities like Doomadgee, when you go into Burketown, and you might have adequate 3G mobile coverage to make a phone call, but by today's standards, if you want to attract workers to any of these communities, whether it be teachers or police or just government workers or anyone like that, they cannot get internet coverage. They're getting, at best, 400 kilobytes a second download and 100 kilobytes a second upload. So that means you can't do Skype with your family if you move away. You can't watch Netflix. You cannot even watch YouTube, do those sorts of things. And I know you've often said to me, look, I don't see what the benefit of YouTube and that is. But for a lot of families...
I'm the older generation, okay?
Yeah,
I didn't grow up with this.
Yeah. I just know a classic example of a person I know that went into a gas field area where they couldn't retain staff, and these were in the middle of nowhere. The best and first thing they did was actually put in proper communications, and those people, they found immediately people wanted to stay out in that community. So we've got to invest the money putting a fibre optic cable up into a lot of these areas. Birdsville. Remember the first time we went to Birdsville? You couldn't make a phone call. For the races. Yeah. And now, since they've put a fibre optic cable out there, everybody gets internet, everybody gets to make a phone call, and that's what's made that area thrive, not just for tourism, but for other things as well.
And that's what the mayor from Burke said to us, didn't he? Ernie.
Yeah.
He said about putting the fibre optic cable that they need up there, which is fair enough. It made sense what he was saying.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't he say it was $2 million?
Yes.
Small price to pay, I think, for state and federal governments to actually attract better retention of staff in those areas and actually have people want to go to rural communities.
But James, you know, hitting the road, even when we went up to Bamaker, right up to the Cape, the tip, and Musgrave Station and the other stations we called at, and their telecommunications was absolutely hopeless. And you had the telephone boxes that are jamming up all the time. And we took this suggestion to the government: take the coinage out of it. Just open up free calls so people can actually make free calls. Now, whether they did anything about that, did that happen? And I think one of the stations they put up a tower, didn't they?
Yeah, we managed to get them to put an Optus tower in, but the problem is the mobile companies in these regional areas, they don't share the network.
And that is wrong, because if Telstra owns the towers, and I know I've spoken to Vodafone, they said, well, why can't we put our equipment on that same tower so we can service? Because a lot of people don't have just Telstra. You know, they're on Vodafone or they're on Optus. So they have a right to get service wherever they are. Why is it totally owned by Telstra when these other companies want to actually utilise it, but also said they'll pay it? It's monopoly of a service, and especially when it comes to telecommunications, that should not be allowed. In Australia, they must be able to share that equipment.
You were there in the Parliament at that time. You saw who voted to sell off Telstra. I know you didn't, but there were others that did, and that's why we're in the predicament we're in today.
I know, I spoke out against it. I was one of the ones, and I said you'll lose 56,000 jobs out of this. You had, at that time, it was making a profit of $2.2 billion. I'm talking about of 1996-97.
Huge money.
And yes, it was. And apprenticeships and everything like that. Everything, and I said then, I saw the writing on the wall, and it's exactly what's happened. And it's cost us a lot of money, and especially now with the NBN. And that's going to blow out. It's about $60 billion now it's cost the government. And
it's a dog.
And of course it's
a dog. It really is. It's a dog, especially when we've got 5G coming in and the speeds that we get off that, and the 4G network that you can use predominantly around the city areas. That's faster, again, than the NBN. Anyway.
We've been able to achieve a hell of a lot, and I'm going to say this to people too, that we were able to be instrumental in getting that cable in the Sunshine Coast. That I drew the mayor to the meetings. He said, we've been through this all before. He said, nothing will happen with us. We won't get the cable. That's
undersea cable that comes in from overseas and brings the internet straight into Australia. So it'll actually make things quicker. And when you're talking milliseconds, whether you're a shareholder who wants to trade faster and those sorts of things, I know it does make a big difference. It may not seem that to the average person, but to a lot of business it does.
So that's another thing that we've been able to achieve, and pulling them all together, minister plus the mayors and everyone like that, and to say, well, sit down and have your talks. And I said, come up with some arrangement that we can get this working. And apparently the mayor he had this attitude, nothing will happen. He had a stinking attitude that day, didn't he? And because...
What is it with you and stinking attitudes towards you?
Because, you know what? I wasn't the LNP. Because I'm one nation, and I'm not the party that he represents, so why bother? But he actually made the effort. He came down. But at the end of the day, I was able to pull it off, and guess what? You've got your cable.
1300 857 466. You are the eyes and ears. This is how Pauline picks up on what's going on out there. Let us know. Let Pauline know. The other way, you can always contact us if you don't feel like talking openly. senator.hanson@aph.gov.au, and you can do that any time of the week, and we get plenty of them. I've got one in front I'll share with you shortly. In the meantime, let's go to Dale. He wants to talk about water. G'day, Dale. Thanks for being patient and holding.
Hi.
No problem at all.
Hi, Dale. Yes.
Hi, how are you, Pauline?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. Not too bad.
I'd like to talk about this so-called drought that we've got, that I think that is manifested by the government, where we have had monsoon rains for the past 2 to 3 years up in the north, and I can't understand why the cotton growers in the north of New South Wales and the south of Queensland have got so much water in their dams, which are taxpayer funded, mind you, and all the water's been redirected from the artesian basin down into their dams, and that's why we're getting no water down to the Murray-Darling.
Well, I wasn't aware of that, what you're saying, the cotton growers in New South Wales, and they're getting it from the artesian basin, the water.
Yeah, because all our river system is spring-fed. Most of our river systems are spring-fed from the artesian basin. Now, there's water up there. Water up there has been redirected, and there is massive dams that have been built on private properties with cotton growers taking a lot of the water.
Right. I wasn't aware of that.
And that's one of the reasons why the Murray-Darling has got no water in it. Because a lot of the water's being redirected. Look at Queensland at the moment. They've got that many floods up there. Where's all the water going? That still keeps on just going out to sea. Why?
Yeah, it is flooding out to the sea. That's where we need to redirect it. And that's why I keep saying
Correct.
about the hybrid Bradfield scheme. Quite interesting, though, that Palaszczuk, they've got no interest in building this, and either does the LNP. The LNP is only going as far as saying, we'll put a feasibility study, and they have no plans of building it.
So, Dale, I've got a question for you. Do you think we should be spending $12.5 billion on the Olympics for Brisbane in 2032, or do you think we should start building water schemes like the Bradfield water scheme immediately with that money?
Well, it's a no-brainer, isn't it, really? Let's face it, it's a no-brainer. I mean, we've had the Olympics that many times. We really don't care about it. Last time in Sydney, it made no money for the state. So why are we going to throw money? I don't even live in Queensland. I mean, I used to have a holiday home up there, but like, it does nothing for the state. It just wastes our money.
Yeah.
Dale, thanks for your call, mate.
Thank you, Dale.
No worries, thanks
for the information.
1300 857 466. I want to bring to your attention now, there is a cash ban which has been brought up. This goes back some months. There was a number of politicians on the Liberal National Party side, led by the Prime Minister Scott Morrison, who has introduced a currency restrictions on the use of cash bill for 2019. It passed the lower house last year. It will limit the use of cash transactions to under $10,000. Anyone who breaks those rules, if it's passed in the Senate this year, will face 2 years jail and fines of up to $25,200, and it's effective for individuals and businesses. What the hell is going on here? Is this a case of flushing out money from underneath the mattresses of Australia or what?
Well, they haven't got my support, I tell you. I will not be backing this. Cash is cash, and how people want to pay their bills is their business. It's not up to the government to say whether you can spend $10,000 or not in cash.
I want to just bring to people's attention, I know that there is a public hearing coming up on the 30th of January this year. It's at the Portside Centre, 207 Kent Street in Sydney, if you want to go to that. Unfortunately, it seems as though the report will be rather quick, 7th of February. Very quick, isn't it?
It is.
Is it normal that they report so quickly, so suddenly after a public hearing on the 30th of January?
Well, it's the first I've heard about it. So are they going to take up the report? So
I don't know.
So
Malcolm Roberts will be attending on behalf of One Nation, so he'll be in Sydney when that happens on the 30th of January. Portside Centre in Sydney. You can find the details if you go to the government website or just review this back a little bit later.
I'd like to hear the people's views about this cash ban, how they feel about it.
Yeah, so would I.
So let us know on my Facebook page. Love to hear what your comments are.
Yeah, 1300 857 466. Madison's actually given us a call on this particular matter, but it looks like she's hung up. Yeah. That's okay. The other thing that I don't quite understand is why you'd want to force people to use the banks. I know of somebody that recently went and bought a boat, spent over 10 grand, went to go into the bank to get a cheque. They were going to be charged $10 to access their own money. And when they said, well, what if I just withdraw the cash? Oh, that's free.
I know. And what happened?
Well, they said, well, bugger you. Give us the cash. And then the bank said, oh, no, we'll give you a cheque. We'll give that to you for free now. And they said, no, bugger it. We'll just take the cash anyway.
So it made them waste more time than counting out the cash. So it almost forces you into a corner as a consumer. If you want to spend more than 10 grand to access your own money, you've got to pay more and more every time you go to the bank. I don't understand what the government's reasoning is behind this. I know they keep using the black economy as an excuse, but so far in the lower house, Labor and the Liberal National Party have both voted in support of this. It's only the independents that voted against it, but unfortunately when you've got the two minority parties colluding together on this, it could well come into effect later this year. But hopefully this hearing, if you can get along to it, do so. Love to know what you think though. 1300 857 466. I know a lot of people don't have 10 grand in the bank. And but it's the principle.
It is the principle.
You're right. Of the whole matter. It's the nanny state again. They're telling you what you can do, and yet look what the banks do.
I know.
You know, and people lost confidence in the banks. And we, the government, we're propping up the banks too, the tune of $250,000, aren't they? You know, if you've got money there,
we're guaranteeing.
Yeah,
we
guarantee.
We are. Let's go back to the phones, 1300 857 466, or you can email us if you want to do it more confidentially. You can do that, senator.hanson@aph.gov.au. We've got Stuart Cull on the phone. G'day, Stuart.
G'day, James. Hi, Pauline.
Hello, Stuart.
A long time no speak,
I was just about to ask you that. Is that the Stuart Cull that I knew from years ago?
Yeah,
you went overseas, didn't you? Over to Europe.
That's right. I went and lived in Switzerland for a little while.
That's right, yeah.
And back now living in Melbourne.
Yeah, good to talk with you. Hope your family's well.
Yeah, everything's well, thank you.
Good.
Thank you for the great work that you're doing, and that you're really, really proud to have been involved with you before, and really proud to see the work that you're doing, Pauline, and James as well. Great job. Keep it up.
Thank you, Stuart. That's really good.
Geez,
Yes.
Stuart, most people only want to call to bag me. You all right?
Yeah. Hey, listen, guys, I wanted to raise a question. We see so many of our big corporates and our big international companies find it so easy to wash off their profits overseas with our current tax system on big corporate Australia. How would we go about, and how, Pauline, could you start raising questions or start questioning that in the Senate to say, instead of these corporates paying tax on profit, which is so easy to hide, why aren't they paying tax on their turnover? Quite a simple question, and I think it's, it might bring a lot of money back to our tax system in Australia and free up some of these wages, this incredible wage tax that we're paying in Australia, which we don't get burdened with in other countries, especially countries like Switzerland.
Totally agree with you, Stuart. And this is where they do, the multinational companies, and there's about 750 in Australia that don't pay tax here at all, and their turnover is in the billions, and they pay very little tax, probably 1% tax that they pay right across the board. And it is wrong. I've been on about multinationals paying their fair share of tax since I was first in Parliament. It was part of my original maiden speech. Quite interesting to listen to the government, and who said, we're going to get them to pay their fair share of tax. I think they got an extra $125 million in taxes paid from them.
They got more out of smokers, Stuart.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The smokers around about $12 billion a year in taxes they pay in this country. That's more than what multinationals pay. So it is something, and you hear them go on with the same old rhetoric, nothing changes. They are destitute, saying we've got to have these investments in Australia. But at the end of the day, when they don't pay their taxes, they might pay a bit of, some payroll tax or employing some people. But at the end of the day, if they're not paying the taxes to help run the country, when they're using these services that we have here, what's the benefit to Australia? And
exactly right.
Governments are falling over themselves to get them here, and they think, they're going to build infrastructure worth, a couple of billion or a few $100 million, and they're building the infrastructure. But then after that, they've given them these deals that they are ripping the guts out of this country with the resources that we have, and we're not getting the monies for it. And this goes on for years and years and years. And the case in point is the Northwest Shelf on the gas. And we actually export about $54 billion worth of gas up there, and the taxes they pay up there are only about $400 million. And do you think that Matt Canavan will actually listen to me? Did the former Prime Minister Turnbull listen to me? No, he didn't. All they're interested in saying, we really need them here. What a load of bunkum that is.
Yeah,
So-
we don't need them at all. We'd better off just leave our resources in the ground and keep them for future generations. Why give them away for free without having them pay a proper tax on it?
Correct. I've got to say the Australian company Woodside and BHP do pay their taxes in this country, and I take my hat off to them. But these other ones, Chevron, Shell and ExxonMobil, no. And they've got about $300 billion plus in tax credits there, and they're going to keep dragging the resources out of this country and not paying taxes. So I blame both the major political parties for the predicament we are in, and it should change. So anyway, great to talk to you, Stuart. We'll keep moving on.
Great working with you. Thank you, Pauline. Thanks, guys. Thanks, James.
Stuart.
Thanks, Stuart. I'm going to have to catch up with Stuart. I think I owe him a phone call.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've been a bit slack on that return. 1300 857 466. One of the emails we've got comes to you tonight. I won't mention their name because I sense there's probably a little bit of sensitivity around here. But it says, as a senior experienced teacher, may I say education is falling behind due to teachers being rewarded with not teaching, with free time, with friends pulling up friends to positions where they are no longer have to be in the classroom. The new goal is to get out of classrooms and still get the paycheck. PE teachers rule in middle school as Education Queensland can't attract teachers with a strong background in their area. Young teachers cost a lot less than senior teachers, and senior teachers are hounded out of a decaying system as they cost money and talk.
Oh my God.
We know what's wrong, and young teachers are ignorant of how classrooms should be run quietly, respectfully, and able to be directed.
But James, I hear this all the time about the ability of these new teachers coming through, and I'm saying all of them, but when they actually can get a teaching profession on a score of 17.
That's what the latest ones were released in the Courier Mail here within the last week. OP 17.
An OP of 17, and the highest one is 1, and they've got to be at a level, they can get a teaching profession at 17.
Can someone tell us, even if it's on the Facebook page, what is an OP of 17 the equivalent of? Is it a C? Is it a C minus? Or is it higher? I'm not sure.
And even I heard from someone else, it's even as high as 20, and the highest you can go to is 28. So I'm sorry, that's not good enough. And
I'd say that would be the second round offers.
This is when I spoke to Simon Birmingham, when we spoke about the GOM scheme.
I know you have.
Okay? And I spoke to him then as the quality of the teachers coming through the universities, because I knew a young girl that was actually going through the profession. She said even what they had to, and it's not even teaching, they have got to have a certain way of thinking, and it's basically so left-leaning that if you don't lean that way, you're not going to get past.
Yeah, it's not in all areas. We acknowledge that. So if you are a teacher, we very much acknowledge it's not all areas, but there is a increase in those requirements, isn't there?
It is.
All right, 1300 857 466. Let's keep moving along. I've got Warren ready to go. G'day, Warren.
Hello, Warren.
Evening, guys. How are you?
Good, really good. What would you like to talk about?
I just rang up, Pauline. Are you aware of the changes that are coming up in the IPCC models in 2022?
No, what's it about?
Well, it's actually pretty much of a game changer. They've made them include solar particle forcings and cosmic ray forcings in their models. Now, this is pretty much the 50% of the sun-generated things that we've been seeing that they've been leaving out of the models. This is why they keep coming up short. So there's a quiet revolution going on in the universities at this point. It just doesn't seem to be making any of the mainstream news at all.
Haven't heard about it, and it's the first time. I should talk to Malcolm Roberts about it. He's really across climate change. He's got wonderful experience and degrees, and he's really been following this, I think, for the past 12 years to do with it. So
yes, look, I see Malcolm was there with Tony Hellier. I'm a great fan of Tony's. He's a great source of information, and he certainly would have his head around some of this stuff. You know, some of the science that I've been watching there, they've even been talking about, you know, the causes of our bushfire and our droughts down the bottom there.
Yep.
We're currently in a solar minimum, and the South Pole's on the move, Pauline. It's left the continent.
Yes, I have heard that. What I do is Malcolm deals with the climate change mostly because he's got the expertise in that area, and I believe he's the most knowledgeable on the floor of Parliament, in both houses. And when it comes to it, and I think
totally agree with you on that point.
Craig Kelly is fantastic.
He seems to be the only one that's had his head around it.
Craig Kelly is very good, but I think Malcolm really has followed the science with it. He's got a background in environmental issues. He can actually build, mine work. He knows all about the gases. He's actually challenged the CSIRO. They can't answer his questions. So he's good value for the Australian people.
I can give you a little heads up on why President Trump left the UN Paris Climate Accord.
Yeah.
He listened to the scientists. Professor William Happer and Dr. Pat Richards gave him presentations of which I've seen, and this is exactly why he left. Contrary to popular belief, he did actually listen to the scientists.
Yeah, okay.
I think you're right.
All right, lovely to talk with you. Thanks, Warren.
All right, 1300 857 466. We seem to be rolling through a few more calls. You've done well, an hour and 23 into it, and you've been on fire. Everybody who comes on tonight, or at least phones up, gets one of these little credit card holders or cash holders that you stick onto the back of your phone, and it says "Sticking Up for Our Farmers."
We certainly are, don't we?
Yeah, that's it. I got Mike ready to go. G'day, Mike.
Good evening, guys.
Hello, Mike. Hello. What would you like to talk about, Mike?
I've got two questions. Okay. My first question is about labour hire companies. The labour hire industry, I think, is killing the actual job market in Queensland itself, because when you're with a labour hire company, you don't get any benefits as far as leave pay or, and you just keep working, and without the money, what can you do, Right. So I just want to know, is there anything going to happen sort of under the Queensland elections or even federal elections about sorting this labour hire companies situation we do have?
Yeah, look, the labour hire, I'd say that is possibly coming under the federal. James, it'll be federal, under the federal arena. I really haven't had a lot to do with it, with the labour hire and their benefits. It depends on whether a lot of people subcontract themselves as contractors. If they do, they don't get the benefits that goes with it as you have a full-time employment. My concern is that a lot of people, businesses, are putting people more on casual wages rather than full-time, because the fact is if they aren't up to the standard of work that they expect of them, you can't sack them, then it makes it too hard for people, and that's why a lot of on casual now. And that's a big problem for the workers, because they're not deriving enough of an income to actually support their family, and they've actually huge problems with it as well is if you want to borrow money for a house, the banks won't take you on because you're on casual. So there's a lot of problems with it. I think that these international agreements that we've signed, free trade agreements, and this, I blame Labor as well as this, they're bringing in workers, they're allowed to bring in workers under these free trade agreements, which is destroying our own workforce in Australia. We've got a lot of problems in Australia with the workforce, and I can only see it getting worse.
Mike, one of the things that I think that we hear from people quite frequently, you get good and bad stories with labour hire. You get some people that are actually happy to be paid and happy to be a part of labour hire, and then you get the others that actually want a full-time job with the company in which they're employed under. And you can't blame those people. As Pauline said, people want to buy a home, they want to make sure there's security for their kids going to the same school for long term. Some people want to put their kids through the same school right through primary and right through high school. And it is an upset to kids if they've got to be moved on. I think what we've certainly agreed on is if you have a job for more than 6 months, or 12 months for that matter, if you've been on a casual basis or labour hire, there must be an offer to put you full-time, particularly if you're staying in that role beyond that period. And I think that gives security for people. By that stage too, you should know the quality of the person's work if they're capable of taking on a full-time role. And I think most Australians want that security, and you're 100% right.
Oh, yeah, no, look, I totally agree with you there. Like myself, I set a higher standard for myself. And, when you're working, especially the younger generation coming through nowadays, is in the job market, some of these guys just don't even have the basic tools.
Hear it all the time.
They can't do it. I mean, the guys are injuring themselves, and and it's just, and you got to take time off work and all that kind of stuff. I appreciate the answer on that one. My second question is falls on immigration. As we have all these guys who are looking for a better life here in Australia when it comes to refugees or asylum seekers or whatever, the amount of money we are spending for these guys is just heaps. I mean, it probably runs into the billions. And my question is, because I've got my parents here who came on one of the most expensive visas that I know of, is the parent contributory visa, which cost them $80,000 or $85,000  9 years ago. And based on that, they can't even get any benefits until the 10-year period is up. And it's just, there are a lot of people who want to come for a better life in it, but yet they don't want to contribute to the economy.
Well, they should. we need people who will contribute, and that's why they're looking at the people come out here. But the amount of refugees, I think the last year we brought in 22,000 refugees. So the government has increased that, nearly doubled it from 13,700 just a few years ago up to 22,000 last year. So we, per population, the ratio that we have in Australia, we're taking, quite a high intake of refugees on the populace. Refugees, they do have those benefits when they're brought out here. They must be housed, everything given to them, the welfare they receive, and I believe even offered jobs. So they are well and truly looked after, refugees. A lot of these refugees, I think that I'd like to see them possibly stay in their own countries and help their own countries to pull back and look after their own countries. I think you've got about 60 million refugees that are throughout the world. We can't help the whole lot of them. So it's like if you're going to bring refugees out, at least they should have some compatibility with the Australian way of life. Otherwise, I feel a lot of them are stranded and they don't like living here.
Mike, thanks for your call, mate. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Good evening. Cheers. Bye.
Thanks.
1300 857 466. It's interesting. Mike's obviously got a slight accent there. He sounded South African to me.
Yeah, it could have been. I was trying to pick where he might have been from.
I love the. I know you did an interview with the ABC prior to Christmas last year. They were shocked at the number of votes you get from migrants.
Yeah, they were. That's right. They did that program.
Yeah, but a lot of migrants,
especially in Fairfield and western suburbs of Sydney.
A lot of the older migrants understand when they came out here, they came out to work. They came out to contribute. They came out to assimilate. They came out to do what was Australian.
But they had to actually go through all these strict and stringent health tests and everything to get here to the country. And they actually embrace this country in a lot of ways that Australian-born don't understand, because they don't know what it's like to come from a country that is don't have the what we give the people here. Freedom, democracy. They don't get that. They don't understand it because they've never left our shores.
Let's go to Greg. He wants to talk about manufacturing. Hi, Greg.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Pauline, you're doing a great job.
Thank you. That's good. I'm glad you think so.
Oh, definitely.
It's not always easy, I can tell you that. And you can't always please everyone. So I don't expect everyone to agree with everything that I say. But, I won't beat around the bush, and I try to be pretty much straight up front with people. You know what you're getting with me.
Yes, very much so. Now, over the years, I've watched everything that's been going on, and when we had car manufacturing, we had jobs, and we didn't have to export as much of, say, our aluminium and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Now, the likes of Boyd Smelters, they're having to put people off because they've got to sell all their product now overseas, and because there's a surplus of aluminium, there's no money in it. Yeah. But when we had our manufacturing, at least our plants and so forth could survive. Now,
Greg, that's what happened over the years with the free trade, and people say, oh, she wants to take us back 50 years, go back to the 1950s and that type of thing. Well, I tell you what, it wasn't so bad in the 1950s. In the 1960s, early 1960, we had 2.6 or 2.4% unemployment in Australia. Now we're looking at 5 to 5.5% in their terms. So, meaning you're not unemployed if you've got 1 hour's paid work a week or if you are studying. So you're not classified as unemployed. And I think there's a lot of people out there would come under the category of actually, getting some 1 hour's paid work a week. So what they classify is wrong. So your free trade agreements, and when you talk about the car industry, they've allowed all this to come in. They took the tariffs off. It's destroyed all our white goods and building fridges and stoves and lawn mowers, everything like that. So we've lost the art of being able to do that type of work in Australia. People wouldn't have a clue how to do it now. They've destroyed that. Our car industry was backed by the Australian government to a tune of $500 million a year subsidised by the Australian government. They gave it to the car company. That car company were paying ridiculous wages for people working online. Who knows what they paid their directors? What they should have done was looked after our car industry by all means, but if you actually, instead of giving the money directly to the car company themselves, the manufacturing company, if they'd actually paid a rebate to any Australian who bought those cars, a subsidy of $5,000, so it went directly to the Australian. A lot of Australians would have bought those Australian cars. It would have kept the jobs going. And not only that, people have to realise, not only just the car industry building the cars, the flow-on effect from that car industry was add-on was another $49 billion flow-on effects from having our car industry here in Australia, which we don't have anymore. So that's what they've destroyed.
But that's the biggest thing to it. We're not only destroying when we got rid of the manufacturing, and in a lot of ways, I see it's now heading towards the primary industries like farming, because it's easier to get it from overseas than what it is to pay our farmers the right amount of money to get the right product. Now,
what it was about
when I was growing up.
Have you heard about the Lima Declaration? Right?
No, I haven't heard that one.
The Lima Declaration was in about 1975-76, and it was brought in to actually forego our industries and manufacturing and to sell our raw materials to third world countries like China and India and other ones, and that we forego our industries and manufacturing, sell them the raw products and buy back the finished product. That's what it was designed for, and that's exactly what it did. And that's why America also lost a lot of their industries and manufacturing, and that's why now, since Trump's been back in, he's actually turned it around completely. The country's now powering ahead. You're not relying on other countries to buy your products. You're actually making it yourself in your own country, and that's what we have to do, and that's what I have been pushing, and it has to change.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, well, see, one of the things when I was growing up, because we had, we've got in Gladstone, we've got QAL, and we had Boyne Smelters. Now, when Boyne Smelters was starting up, everyone was going, it would be wonderful if we get boat manufacturers up here, we get car manufacturers up here, because once you've got those manufacturers near to the smelter, the cost of carting the aluminium to the boats or the car factory is only nominal. It's not like it's going to be costing them millions of dollars carting it from Gladstone all the way down to Brisbane.
Look, totally agree. The thing is, we're on the same lines. People need to know out there. You need to know what is actually happening, why it's happened. So this is something that I'm pushing. The party's pushing. This is our policies. Let's get industries and manufacturing thriving again here in Australia. Thank you very much for your call.
Totally agree. 1300 857 466. I tell you, you're getting a good variety of calls. Good feedback tonight. That's our number, 1300 857 466. We're on air till 8 p.m. Queensland time. I know it's approaching 9 o'clock in New South Wales. Let's go now to George. Hello, George.
Yeah, g'day. How you going?
Hi, George.
You want to talk about the cash ban?
I love your work, Pauline. I've followed your career since day dot, and I think you've done a fantastic job so far. And I just hope we can get you across the line in the next election. It'll be great, you know. But I just wanted to make sure that you're aware as a senator how critical it is for the cash ban not to go through. That is effectively the pin that's going to force people to keep their money in the bank. We've got a GFC Part 2.0, they're calling it, rapidly approaching. You've got international banks all around the world that are all connected to each other, as we saw in GFC Part 1. When mum and dads are forced to keep their money in the banks, the Glass-Steagall Act is completely ineffective. They're gambling with mum and dad's savings and everyone's pensions. when they're doing that, everyone's going to lose absolutely everything. I don't want to go to a Commonwealth bank, go to pull some money out of my bank and find out that I've got 20 grand. Instead of having 20 grand's worth of cash in the bank, I've now got 20 grand's worth of worthless Commonwealth bank shares because they've gone insolvent, you know?
Yeah. Look,
it's all tied in. Sorry, there's just one more point. It's all tied in with the 2018, I think it was, when they pushed through the bank bail-ins, you know. So now the bank can effectively just confiscate, steal your money as they're going broken out the door, you know. And it's just absolutely sick. It makes me feel sick to my stomach to think, you know, we've got this financial storm on the horizon, worldwide, you know, apocalyptic event on the horizon.
Well, it's all about control over the people, and that's exactly what they're doing. If you control the money, you can control the people. But if you've got both major political parties who are agreeing with it, it doesn't matter. The minor parties, such as myself, will not be able to stop it. So I'd suggest to people, if you are dead set against the cash ban, I suggest you get in touch with your Member of Parliament, let your voice be heard. People power again.
And the public hearing's coming up.
Send them an email to their office saying you're not happy with it.
Yep, there's the details of the currency restriction on the use of cash bill for 2019. It's up in the Senate later this year, and the public hearing is on the 30th of January 2020. It's at the Portside Centre, 207 Kent Street, and it doesn't cost you anything to go. Just rock up. Their report is due on the 7th of February.
Thanks for your call, George.
All right.
Good to talk with you.
Maleny Dairies we were talking about earlier, and most people are very upset at the fact that they've lost their bid to take on a state contract to supply milk to the hospitals from Gympie all the way back down to Brisbane in the southern part. Maleny Dairies, well known in Queensland, and I think any person that really looks out for homegrown, well-paid dairy farmers' milk, this is a company in Queensland that you can definitely rely on. Ross Hopper is the owner. He's managed to put down the hose, mate. You've been fighting fires, have you?
No, I haven't been fighting fires. We've been out. We've had storms just go through Maleny, so we've been out cleaning up.
How you going, Ross? Good to talk with you.
Oh, very good. I'm going all right, and yeah, good to catch up.
Look, I'm really disappointed to hear you didn't get that contract, and I've made my views being heard. So I fully support you, and I think a lot of Queenslanders support you as well. So just tell us a bit of your story.
Judging by the feedback and the comments and so on with the social media and in the news and so on, there's a lot of people who are disappointed to hear that the way that things are going at the moment.
Yeah.
Ross, I've been made aware that Joe Natali, who is the former mayor of the Sunshine Coast some years back, his wife Rosanna has got in touch with us. There's a march to Queensland happening in support of Maleny Dairies, your company, 9 a.m. on the 18th of February. And obviously they want to send a real clear message to the Queensland government that they don't want the milk contract going to China and France.
Yeah, and I've heard the same thing. And obviously, we've got to be careful to not be, upsetting things too much. But the whole idea is we don't want our local representatives upsetting our farmers and not looking after them. Like, why are they sending the profits and all that overseas? It just doesn't make sense, does it?
No, it doesn't. And jobs, and especially when you pay a fair price to the dairy farmers above production costs, and Lactalis doesn't. I'm sorry, I know who we should be backing.
I just want to bring to people's attention, here's the details. Labor has given their milk contract to the Chinese and French companies in Queensland for the supply of 11,000 to 15,000 litres of milk every week for those hospitals in Brisbane, the Prince Charles Hospital, the Royal Brisbane Hospital, the Gympie Hospital, and a number of smaller hospitals. And you can quite clearly see there that these multinational companies that have won the contract do not pay their fair share of tax. In fact, it works out to an equal rate of tax of about 1.48%. Wouldn't it be great, Ross, if you were only paying 1.48%? That just automatically puts you on an uneven pegging when you go in to bid for these contracts.
Yeah, well, but it's just like you said, if they're not paying their farmers the right amount, well then why has the dairy industry taken such a dive in the last 20 years in Queensland? And it's been run by two major players, and those two major players are obviously overseas owned, and it's just taken a dive of huge proportion, and like with 1,500 farmers down to less than 300.
Yep.
Well, obviously things aren't happening. Farmers aren't getting paid the right amount of money, and when you got big companies running their operations from international and just looking at figures and farmers in Queensland, they don't deserve to be paid properly. We'll just get milk elsewhere, and if they squeal, so bad.
Yeah. Russ, just tell people about your background. You came from your father, was in farming, was a dairy farmer?
Yeah.
And was your grandfather? How long?
Yep, for sure. And so what it is where we built the factory, my wife and I, we built the factory 20 years ago on our family farm. And so my grandfather has been dairying here since 1948, and then it was my father, and now my brother runs the farm. As our parents are all passed away, and I buy the milk off my brother and 10 other farms locally.
That's right. You didn't have to do that. You didn't have to expand. You could have actually, just looked after yourself. But you expanded your business, and actually you had a run-in with the the retailers, and stood your ground, didn't you? And then finally they knew that people wanted your milk, and then started taking your milk again, and you pay the farmers a fair farm gate price for the milk, and you've kept them viable, which is fantastic what you've done. And I tell people, I've been to, it's up in Maleny, so that's in the hinterland of the Sunshine Coast. So anyone, if you're there, go to the Maleny Dairies, have a look. You'll get a great different product that you have, Ross, isn't it?
Yogurts, cream, milk.
Yeah.
And we try to do the best and look after our farmers, and it's about providing to our customers a good quality milk, and we won Australia's best milk 2 years in a row, and we've
that
got
speaks
People's
volumes,
Choice Award.
Ross. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we got People's Choice Award this year. Anyway, I was just going to move me buggies on the road to the tanker. The tanker's heading out to get another load of milk. I'm just running at the moment. So just
all right,
Ross,
it's been wonderful to talk with you. Thanks for that. And listen, the people are getting behind you and supporting you. So anyway, take care, mate. Great to talk with you.
No worries at all.
All right.
Thanks, Ross.
Bye.
1300 857 466. A lot of people, particularly on the Sunshine Coast, know who Ross Hopper is. He's not only a bloody good dairy farmer, but he's also
a
great
bloke.
man who gets involved in the community. He's the first one to sponsor things. He's the first one to rock up if there's ever somebody who needs a shipping container.
He's down to earth.
Yeah, we met Ross and we took him out to the Birdsville races.
Yes.
Yeah, so he's well known to our camp, that's for sure, and I know he knows a lot of other political figures, so I'm shocked to think that Labor didn't give this. I think if Ross's business was in the seat of Logan or a Labor heartland seat in the middle of the city, he would have got the contract.
Yeah.
But because it's in what they call blue ribbon territory, no. Anyway, Anastasia Palaszczuk has an opportunity to correct the wrongs and look after Australian dairy farmers and a wholesome Australian company as well. Now, Australia Day is coming up. This weekend, won't be long. We are off to Yeppoon for Australia Day this year.
Well, it's going to be a special Australia Day for me.
Well, it will be because is this the first time you've held a citizenship ceremony?
No, it's not.
Oh.
Well, I've got to tell you this one. I started doing it as a federal member for Oxley. The council, Ipswich City Council, used to invite me to go to the citizenship ceremonies there. So anyway, I went along there and I said, Senator, I wasn't Senator at that time. They said, would you actually like to say some things? And I welcomed all these new faces there, new Aussies who are there, so proud of having their certificates and become Australian citizens. But at the very end, I'd say to them, well, unless you give this country your undivided loyalty, I'll be the first one to take you to the airport, put you on a plane and wave you hooray. But they all used to burst out laughing. Well, the officials and the council, they were absolutely shocked. Guess what? They withdrew my invitations to go to the citizenship ceremonies.
Oh,
but the whole fact is, guess who was still standing there as the last person getting photos with all these new citizens? You didn't see the mayor, you didn't see any of the councillors, none of the officials. They'd all gone, and I was there, the last one, to welcome all these new Australians. And they understood what I meant, and they had a laugh about it. But anyway, there's some precious people out there.
This is the first citizenship ceremony you're hosting since being re-elected.
Since I've been a senator, yes, I have.
So you're going to use the same line? Are you going to threaten them? Just
Actually, I was thinking about it. I don't know how they feel about it these days. But anyway, up at Yeppoon, so it's going to be very special. And they actually personally requested for me to do the ceremony. So this is going to be quite interesting. Who knows what's going to come out of my mouth?
I know, there are days I cringe.
But I think it's fantastic. Look, if I went to another country, would I give up my citizenship? I know you can have dual citizenship. Geez, I'd really want to be, part of that country to actually take on the citizenship. And I think that I expect the same of people here. And those people that have taken citizenship, good on you. Be Aussie, join us, welcome. And that's how Australians feel about it.
Look out, Central Queensland. Pauline Hanson, hitting Australia Day for a special ceremony. And we'll be welcoming some new Australian citizens up there on Sunday this year, isn't it? Sunday?
Yes,
it is Sunday.
This Sunday, the 26th. Yes.
Talking Australia Day, I noticed Scott's called through to have a chat to us. G'day, Scott.
How you going, guys?
Hi, Scott. Hello.
Australia Day for you. What are you doing?
We're heading down to Gold Coast tonight, mate's place, and have a few quiet ones for a start, and see where that leads to from there.
Good.
But, barbecue, beers with friends and family. It's not much, it's nothing flash, but what gets me is people make this deal out of it being, and calling it Invasion Day. And that really gets on my nerves.
Oh, it gets up my nose as well. Don't worry about that. And I think a lot of Aussies. And I have no intentions, if I've got anything to do with it, of changing the day to another day because they feel offended. Well, I'm sorry. Get over it. Move on. It happened, over a couple of 100 years ago. And I'm not interested. And it doesn't matter. If you move from the 26th, you move it to another day, the chip on the shoulder's still there, you still got the attitude, and it won't be any different whatever day you pick until they get rid of it altogether. And this is about Australians celebrating.
All right, 1300 857 466. You can give us a call about absolutely anything. I think we've got Adrian who wants to talk about Australia Day as well. G'day, Adrian. What do you do?
Hi. Good evening. Good, thank you.
Hello, Adrian.
Hi, Pauline. Sorry for disturbing you. At this time, usually I'm in bed sleeping because I like to be.
Oh, have we kept you out of your bed? If we have, that's great. We must be doing all right to keep you out of your bed.
Yeah, good on you, Adrian.
It's my first. First, I want to tell a bit about. My name is Adrian. I come from Romania 8 years ago. Not English speaking. No, not even. My first time when I come in Australia was people ask me, what's your name? And respond back was, nice to meet you. So now I know what nice to meet you. Now to answer, my name is Adrian. So, yes,
and what do you say? Do you say now, g'day, mate?
Honest to be, not much. I'm a bit shy about this.
That's all right, mate. Welcome to Australia, and I'm glad you're a part of it.
He's been here 8 years.
Yeah, I know, but that's
so
all right.
Where from again, Adrian?
Romania, was it?
Where? Romania.
Romania. I grew up. Yes, I grew up in the orphanage. Unfortunately, I grew up in the orphanage from 0 age until 18. After they kicked me on the street because the government, it's unfortunate.
Adrian, have you enjoyed Australia? Living here?
Yeah, and I want to tell you that I have one small problem. After 8 years being in Australia, me and my partner, which is named Grant Wolf, he do a lot of volunteer for his birthday this Sunday. He's Aussie. We've been together for 8 years, and he begging to me, Adrian, please, I want this Sunday because you just recently, on 9th of January, I passed the test and everything, and I asked him if on the same day we celebration the citizenship and his birthday.
Oh, well,
And
you wish
I
him a
thought
happy birthday
yesterday-
from us. Yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Manly, where I live in Manly, they say they don't do any ceremony on the 26th, not even on the 27th.
Yeah.
I spoke with the immigration, and they say that is something unusual. And I asked the immigration if they can relocate in another place, and they say we can't. You have to, we can't change the address because I live in Manly. And I really want me and my partner to attend to this beautiful day ceremony. So for me, my Australia give me life, give me opportunity. I've been working for refugee school. I've been working for the state and government cleaning and restaurant. I will bring our refugee from India and other organizations to say, okay, guys, we are refugee in Australia, but let's make this country great because they give us a lot. And I want this Sunday, I really want, if it's a possibility, because you have power. I don't have power.
Oh, geez, I wish I had power. I've got much power in my little finger. That's what, a lot of people, I'm a member of Parliament, but I can't move mountains.
No,
So
but isn't that unfortunate that Manly have
That's in
ditched
Sydney.
Australia Day, doing citizenship ceremonies on Australia Day, to do it on the 27th? That's pathetic.
Yeah. Go to another suburb. Go to another. You don't have to be at Manly.
I tell you what we
You
should
can go wherever
do.
you want to be.
We've got Adrian's details. Adrian, stay there. Talk to Mark Latham and see if he'll do it on the 26th.
I don't know if he can.
I don't
Not
know.
being a federal member of Parliament.
Well, the councillors are doing it, so why can't he?
Yeah, well, the mayors are. So anyway.
Listen, time's ticking away, Adrian. Thank you for your call, 1300 857 466. We've been giving a stack of these away. These are the credit card holders, and we're just giving them away. If you give us a call between now and 8, we'll do that. I've got one last call I think we can probably get to. Sayed, is it?
Hey, hi.
Hello, Sayed.
Hi, Pauline. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
That's awesome. I just wanted to ring and say I just think you're so amazing and standing up for Australia Day. You know, it's so important that we keep it on the day that it is, and I just think it's absolute rubbish that people have an opinion that's, anything else than that. I just wanted to commend you and, for sort of standing up and fighting for that. I just think it's so amazing.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm thinking I'm voicing what a lot of Australians feel about it, and it's about time uniting. You can't change history. You can change the date. It's not going to change history. That is how it happened.
That's exactly right.
It wasn't invaded. I'm sorry. The country was settled, and I'm not going into this invasion, which the story that they want to push. It's not uniting us. Okay. So my attitude is, and I said it before, get rid of the chip off your shoulder. We're all Australians together, and I won't be told this is not my country. It is the same as any migrant that's come here. They have taken citizenship. They love this country as much as anyone that's born here, and let's unite as one Australian. So anyway,
That's exactly right. Look, thank you so much for your time. I love you, and I wish you all the best of luck, and keep doing what you're doing. We really, really appreciate you.
Good on you,
My
Sayed.
pleasure.
Thank you, mate. I tell you what, the music's begun, so that means it's wrap-up time. You've done well. Again, just to give you some indication, 162,000 viewers. That's the engagement you've had tonight. There's at least 491 people still with us. You've done well. You're a popular lady,
James, I haven't done this by myself, so it's been good to speak about these issues with you.
Can I
and our
point
travels
something
and
out?
journals.
Do you know Paul Murray has started taking phone calls just like you on his program after your New Year's Eve show?
Did he?
He did.
Well, good on him.
It is.
If he's look, I don't care who learns from us, who picks up our ideas. The government's picking up my policies all the time. They have done for the last 20 odd years, and the Labor Party and the Greens. They're all picking up my policies, following my lead. That's a good thing.
But where are you getting them from? Listening to the people.
Correct.
And that's exactly
what it's
where it
about.
comes from. So if you see us on the street, stop us, say good day. We're going to have a whole lot of candidates out across Queensland in particular because we've got a state election coming up. We've got an unveiling of a whole heap of candidates that I know the executive have signed off on over the last couple of days. Keep an eye out for them. it's an interesting next 9 months because Queensland, I think, is in for a big change.
It is. According to what the people are saying, what we're hearing, they've had a gutful of the major political parties. They want change. They want someone who's going to fight for them. And hopefully we'll get there. But thanks for your support. Lovely to be with you tonight. It's been a pleasure to spend this time with you.
Hey, you're cutting them short 2 minutes.
Oh, okay. What do you want to talk about?
Well,
we didn't talk about Doomadgee.
Oh, do you really want to go there? No, it takes longer than 2 minutes.
I know.
Look.
That is a big issue, and I tell you what, you'll be hearing more from me, and so will the Minister, Ken White. I'm warning you, Ken, and everyone else. It's going to be, needs to be discussed. So, to everyone else, thank you very much.
Anyway, she's cut you 2 minutes short. Should dock your pay.
My clock says 8 o'clock, mate.
You're
I'm
doing
out of here.
You're doing what all the other politicians do.
I'm older than you, okay? Respect your elders.
Good night, everyone.